And even though, fortunately for me, it's for many good aspects with my chart. What happens with the 12th house? And I was reading some ancient astrologers on the very topic of the 12th house only a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact. I won't talk about them. You asked me what I thought. The 12th house is very much to do with anything that's hidden, concealed, or unable to be accessed in the usual kind of way. It's connected also with any form of imprisonment or being held down or held back, secrets, issues that you may not like coming to light. It's traditionally the house of secret enemies. It is also the house of prisons, of big institutions, anywhere where you feel as though you're confined, like a hospital, a mental asylum. Even a big company can be very confining. Mm-hmm. People often confine themselves in their little cubicles,
right,
when they work in these huge departments and so on. It's very Kafka-esque, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, a person who's heavily orientated to 12th house in their chart is someone who will invariably, as far as I can see, have to deal with matters which are often kept in the dark and are often quite frightening. They will also have the opportunity to use these experiences for a powerful spiritual growth. Mm-hmm. Because when you experience matters which perhaps could be viewed as unpleasant or terrifying or restrictive, you have to deal with this business of the surfboard having to change course. And it may be that you will learn to refocus your life through the experiences of the 12th house. Now bear in mind that with astrology, nothing is fixed. You don't stay in the 12th house unless you die. Because let's say your sun is in the 12th house when you're born. The sun, by progression, every year, moves a degree. Mm-hmm. So if your 12th house is, we're talking about Aries, let's say your 12th house, your sun is at 15 degrees of Aries and your rising sun is 1 degree of Taurus. By the time you're 16, you won't be in Aries anymore. You'll still have the basic flavour of Aries, but for the following 30 years, your emphasis is on Taurus. So we have the idea of the progressions are like, those kind of drinks where the colours go up the glass,
right.
The alcoholic drinks, tall glasses, different layers of colour going up the glass.
Yeah.
It seems to me the natal chart, and we're dealing with the 12th house here, the natal chart itself is like the drink in the glass. But there's different flavours of the drink going up the glass in the different colours. But the natal chart is the basic drink. And the progressions, and to some extent the transits, are that as you go up the glass, you move into these different colours. It's a bit like, to keep in the drink metaphor, coffee is coffee, but when you add milk, and then add sugar, and then maybe add Tia Maria, you have a drink which doesn't taste anything like the original coffee.
Right.
And it can be that way with a person. As these significant changes come to their life, they're still the same person, they're still coffee, but they know they've got sugar in the coffee, so their approach to other people is quite different. And this, I think, comes through progressions and major transits.
That's a great analogy. Do you?
An answer?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Do you see the 12th house as having also a point of transcendence, meaning that you are ensconced in the limitations of the 12th house, but at some point it turns on a pivot and it opens you up to greater understanding, greater depth, greater compassion, greater wisdom, greater immersion in consciousness. Have you found this to be also evident in the 12th house?
I think what you've just said, I think, is a strong possibility with the 12th house. But as I said before, you can't judge just by the 12th house.
Yeah.
I mean, some people will be put into prison and die. That's a very 12th house experience. You're not going to get them out. But if a person is actively working on improving their spiritual level or their growth in consciousness, or even just trying to get more control over their life, as opposed to simply going with the flow, I think your opportunities for this in the 12th house might be indicated by... I can't really answer that question because I'd have to look at a person's chart to make a judgment. But the theory of the 12th house is that it is a house of great restriction. It's a house of being held back, and it has got... I just slightly illustrate what I'm talking about. I look at the life. It's like a long continuum. It's like a string. And the string has got a main current. This causes you, and causes nearly everybody, to flow in a certain direction in the same way as the wave that we were talking about before does. But every so often you come to a sort of a weir or a tributary in the river. And that is the opportunity where you can get out of the main stream. Instead of floating along like a bug on a leaf, you can fly off into the secondary tributary. That's still a stream, it's still going in a certain direction, but my view of that is that you are raising your level of consciousness to a higher level, higher stage of growth. And the stage of growth, I think in the 12th house, one of these little nexuses of probability, if you like, that the 12th house really stimulates you to want to do something about it. Unless you wish to be imprisoned and overwhelmed and bricked up in a tower, you want to do something about it. And so I would think that strong transits in particular, but also progressions to planets from the 12th house or in the 12th house, are going to bring you to what I call a nexus of probability. And this nexus of probability is like shaking you awake. And your little eyes might open up a bit, and you see in this dark place, the 12th house, you might see a tunnel with light at the end of it, and you can then make the decision to go down that tunnel. I don't want to sound fatalistic here. I have a friend who contributed a lot to our website named Ram Ramakrishnan. He's an Indian astrologer. And he said about fatalism, he said, since I became a fatalist, everything has been perfect. But because it doesn't matter what happens, it's intended to happen. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about fate. I'm saying that we have the opportunity to turn fate into destiny. And the difference between fate and destiny is that fate is what happens to you, and destiny is what you're able to make happen.
Right. Yeah.
With the tools that you give. You can't change the tools that you give. If you're born with no arms, you have no arms. However, it may be that you can, if you really want to get some arms, you can find someone who can make you a nice pair of artificial arms.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So my computer just went to sleep. I had to tell it not to turn on. Go on anyway.
So, staying with the 12th house a little bit, I'm just going back in time and remembering, because
You love the 12th house.
What's that?
You love the 12th house.
Well, I'm intrigued by it right now because it's I don't know, it's just coming up for me. So, you're a Sag rising. I'm a Scorpio rising, but barely 28 degrees. Most of my first house is Sag, obviously. And in the 90s, for me, it was the 90s when I had Pluto moving through my 12th house, and I'm sure it was right around the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, late 80s, early 90s. You were having that Pluto transit as well through your 12th house. For me, that was an incredibly powerful time, and it really it brought my shadow, some really dark stuff inside of me, right to the surface for a good 4 to 5 year period. It was very powerful, very intense. It was one of the more challenging periods of my life. I got into legal trouble. I was battling with addictions, and this was a true 12th house experience. What was your experience like with Pluto moving through the 12th?
We have no money. We have no money. We don't have anything.
Robert,
I pay.
my wife, who I warned you was insane, has just come in.
Yeah, I pay.
Amazing.
I pay for everything to it.
That was interesting. What house did that come up in? Are you there? Wow. I think our interview came to a crashing halt. Wow. All right. We'll have to see where that goes. Okay. Okay, we had a brief glitch in the matrix there, and got Rob back on, and we were just discussing off the air the 12th house a little bit. He wanted to go a little bit deeper and get into kind of a Greek aspect or definition around the 12th house and relationship and the intensity. And Rob, why don't you pick that up and continue with that line of thought? That was interesting.
Okay. Well, we were talking about the 12th house. We were also talking about the way you can grow through the intentions that are attached to the 12th house by becoming aware. Now, the 12th house is traditionally known as the kakadaimon, which means the evil demon. Sometimes that's applied also to the moon's south node, or the dragon's tail.
Right.
But what happens is that as you form a relationship with anybody or anything, you form an energetic connection using the natural non-material connections of what we would describe as the subtle body or the chakra system. So you form an intense relationship with somebody. Most people think this is my soulmate. And so that's an intense relationship. But what really is a soulmate? A soulmate is someone who is there to fulfill you as a person. Sometimes the fulfillment as a person is not always pleasant. In fact, by no means pleasant. When I'm talking about the kakadaimon, this is the evil demon. Sometimes we feel as though the other person is the evil demon. Now, what the Greeks also thought about the evil demon was that it was all the parts of you that you had put to one side and didn't want to deal with. These became the kakadaimon, or the evil demon. It's something that you need to relate to in order that you can see what you've put away and whether you're finished with it or whether you haven't. And I think this idea of what I call the dyadic relationship, where two people form extremely intense energetic connections, is related in some ways to that. It doesn't mean that always the person that you are dealing with is evil or anything of that nature at all, but it does mean that they are there to bring out all the things in you that you might not know about. When we talk about the soulmate, we talk about the other half, the person who fulfills the bits that are missing from you. Sometimes that person is what you dump the other bits onto, and they dump their bits onto you. And this is a way where personal growth achieves galactic speed. What do you think of that?
That's not bad. I think if you can, again, using your metaphor of the wave, if you can ride that giant wave, absolutely.
That's right.
The challenge is a lot of times in those heated, intense, powerful connections like that, you get knocked off your board, you get knocked under the wave, and sometimes you bang your head on a piece of coral underneath, and you come back up. I mean, it's
Exactly.
Yeah. So we are staring down the second solar eclipse of this year. First one, of course, being on January 4th, the next one being on July 1st.